Over the past 10 years, I've pretty much immersed myself in the world of personal finance and building wealth. I've read all the books, listened to the podcasts, watched the YouTube videos, got myself a degree in business and economics, I've worked as a commercial lawyer, and I've even bought myself a few investment properties by the time I turned 30. And from all of this, I've seen 6 terrible money habits which people repeat over and over again, which sets them back in huge ways. So today I'm going to share these with you and how you can break out of them, or even better, just avoid them altogether. The first money habit keeping you poor is having bad debt. There's 2 kinds of debt. There's bad debt and there's good debt. Bad debt is money borrowed at high interest rates, usually higher than 20% through credit cards or personal loans to purchase things that lose value, like cars, luxury items, and consumer goods. Whereas on the other hand, you have good debt, which is money that's borrowed to purchase things that go up in value and therefore make you wealthier, like getting a bank loan to purchase an investment property. So you want to avoid bad debt at all costs. You really can't get anywhere financially if you have bad debt. It's really just the worst thing, but the problem is it's so socially acceptable today. For example, buying an expensive new car is this big status symbol and it's a sign of success today. But the reality is that it's one of the worst financial decisions you can make if you're serious about trying to build wealth for yourself. And this can end up causing people to get into a debt spiral where their interest payments are higher than they can actually afford, so that their debt just keeps increasing and it spirals out of control. And this is a really dark place to be, and it's very difficult to get out of. So I believe that most people should just stay away from credit cards altogether. And if you can avoid bad debt, this is just a huge win for you financially, not only because you have no bad debt, but also because it goes a long way to avoiding other bad money habits like overspending on impulse purchases and generally buying things that you don't need. The second money habit that's keeping you poor is being lazy about your money. Most people don't really pay any attention to their personal finances. They don't even have any idea how much comes in and goes out. They think that they're just doing fine if there's some money left over at the end of the month. But this is really the wrong way to look at it. Tracking how much money you have coming in and going out and where you're actually spending your money is just an essential habit if you don't want to be poor. It gives you control over your money instead of your money controlling you. Having a good budget combined with a weekly check-in on how you're tracking against it is just a great way to get clear oversight on how your money works and where you can cut down on wasteful and excessive spending. You should also look at paying yourself first instead of last like most people do. Every payday, automatically transfer 20% of your income to a savings account, which you then don't touch, and learn to make do with the remainder of your pay. What this will do is build a habit of saving and just generally being good with money, and it will quickly turn into a little game that you have with yourself about what else you can do to improve your finances. It also gives you a lot of confidence and motivation as you see your bank balance growing over time. And I really encourage you guys to just keep going with this until you've built up enough savings to cover at least 6 months of expenses if you lost your job or something like that. This is why this is also known as an emergency fund. So once you have no bad debt and you have an emergency fund in place, you're doing really well, and you can then start to think about starting to invest, which is where the fun begins. If you guys are getting something out of this video, please consider taking a moment to subscribe and like the video. It always helps out the channel when you guys do this, and it helps YouTube spread it to more people who could use the video just like you. The third money habit that's keeping people poor is putting off investing. Think to yourself, what's the biggest and most common tax in the world? It's probably not what you're thinking. It's actually the cost of inaction. And this is a silent tax because people don't realize they're just leaving incredible amounts of wealth on the table simply by waiting too long to get into the game of investing. Because once you're in the game, you're putting the 2 most powerful wealth building tools in the world on your side, which are compound interest and time. They just go hand in hand, these 2 things. The best way to leverage the power of compound interest is to invest as early and consistently as possible. The bigger the time horizon that you have, and the more you feed the machine by continuing to invest, the more compound interest will take hold, and after a certain point, it will start to increase your wealth exponentially. But so many people do the opposite. They fall into the trap of putting off investing or not even thinking about it until they're married, they've got kids, and once their kids have finally grown up and moved out of home. But by then, they've given up 20 to 30 years of compounding, which would have generated enormous amounts of money for them while they just went about their lives all those years. It's kind of hard to actually overstate the power of compounding. People know it's a thing, but they underestimate its effect all the time by putting off investing when they're otherwise in a position to pull the trigger. As an example, imagine this. If you were able to pull together enough savings to purchase a $500,000 investment property at 25 years old, and assuming it grew at 7% per year on average, in 40 years time, at 65 years old, it would be worth about $7.5 million. And you might have noticed here that your money nearly doubles every 10 years when it grows at 7%. But say instead that you purchased the property at 35 years old. So 30 years later, when you're 65 years old, it would be worth $3.8 million, which is half as much as it would be worth if you had just invested 10 years earlier. So if you invest 10 years earlier in an asset than someone else does, and it grows at 7% on average, and all other things are equal, your net worth will be double theirs because your wealth has already doubled in the 10 years it took them to get started. But then imagine this. If you bought the $500,000 property at 25 years old, and then you worked really hard and you bought another $500,000 property at 35 years old, by the time you're 65, the combined value of the properties would be $11.3 million. So from all of this, I hope I've just been able to show to you that you can increase your wealth by millions of dollars by investing early and continuing to invest throughout your life. I like to think of it this way. If you invest consistently and sensibly over a long period of time, you will earn far more throughout your life from the compounding of your investments while you sleep than you ever will from actively going to work and earning a salary for all those years. That is the power of compounding. The fourth money habit keeping people poor is knowing the price of everything but the value of nothing. I see people all the time who choose not to spend money on things that could substantially increase their income and their long-term wealth, all because they get caught up on the price of the thing. If you're doing this, you're really missing the point and you're doing yourself a great disservice. For example, paying for courses to educate yourself and build new skills is a great thing to do because you can then use the new skills and knowledge to increase your earning capacity, whether this allows you to get a better paying job or start your own business on the side. But very few people invest in themselves like this because they get hung up on the fact that the course costs $1,000 or whatever. They make the mistake of being fixated on the price instead of seeing it for what value it's going to provide them. So this is a classic case of loss aversion, which is a cognitive bias that makes us far more concerned with avoiding losses than achieving gains. Studies show that the reason for this is because the pain we experience from a loss is twice as powerful as the pleasure we get from a gain. The trick, I think, to avoiding loss aversion, keeping you poor, is to think very long term, and by this I mean thinking in decades. When you zoom out and you see the big picture, it becomes really clear how much investing in yourself is going to pay off in the future, and you realize the cost of that investment is going to seem trivial when you look back in the future at all the money that it's made you. Number 5 for things keeping you poor is instant gratification. The main reason people spend too much money is because they give in to a desire to have everything and to have it now, whether they can afford it or not. So this leads to people just draining their savings and taking on bad debt to buy things they feel like they must have but that they really don't need. Instant gratification basically comes from a status game of comparing ourselves to others. So a good way to avoid this trap is to stay away from any people or social media or other content which makes you feel bad about yourself or makes you feel like you need to have something to be good enough, fit in, or not miss out. Instant gratification makes you fall into the trap of lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep, where you spend more and more money as your income increases, so that you basically end up in the same position that you were in before when your income was much lower. And this is usually seen in the way of buying luxury brand items like clothes or expensive cars, fancy vacations, bigger houses, and so on as you earn more money. This is one of the easiest ways to keep yourself poor, but it's sadly very common and it's very socially acceptable as well, or even expected behavior. This is how people get trapped in the rat race of working jobs they hate to pay for an expensive lifestyle which ultimately doesn't bring them any fulfillment. So to avoid this, you need to train yourself the really valuable skill of delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is basically just the ability to resist the temptation of an immediate reward and waiting for a later, larger reward. I really do think this is one of the most important skills you can acquire in life in general, not just in terms of personal finance and wealth. But so few people ever get there because delayed gratification requires self-control, patience, and perspective. And by this, I just mean seeing the bigger picture. My number one tip for avoiding instant gratification and getting good at delayed gratification is whenever you get that impulsive urge to buy something, focus on how you will feel after the initial thrill you get from buying the thing has passed, rather than just thinking about the thrill itself. For example, when considering buying the latest and greatest tech item, rather than thinking about how awesome it will be to have it, think about how that will actually impact your savings, or how long it will take to pay off that debt, or what other and possibly more important things you'll have to forego later because you spent your money on this thing. Put another way, you're effectively asking yourself, does this serve my future self? The final money habit that's keeping you poor is trying to do it by yourself. So the wealthy people in the world build a team of professionals around them who are smarter than them in the domain of money and investing. They leverage the knowledge, skills, and experience of their team to create a strategic long-term plan for achieving their financial goals. And they then rely on their team to execute that plan in a way that gets them the best possible results. On the other hand, the poor people of the world try to do it all by themselves. But this is just a mistake because it's unrealistic. There's just too many things to learn and there's too many skills to acquire for a regular person with a job, family, and social life to do. For example, purchasing an investment property requires you to know about the correct location and type of property to buy, the fair market value, the hidden costs, how to structure your loan, the correct legal ownership structure, how to negotiate effectively, and how this decision will actually impact your financial future. The truth is, this requires the help of property portfolio planners, buyer's agents, mortgage brokers, accountants, and lawyers. And for the average person, this creates overwhelm, and it leads them to either procrastinate and not do anything, or research for so many years that the market doubles or triples in value by the time they're ready to act. And even then, it's highly doubtful that they will get the same results as a team of professionals who do this day in, day out. To me, it's really just a matter of common sense and being humble. I mean, what would you think if someone came to your work and bet you that they could do your job just as well as or even better than you? You'd probably laugh at them because you know that it's taken years of hard work, study, training, and experience to do your job like you do. So why then does it make sense for people to think that they can just make these massive financial decisions which involve hundreds of thousands of dollars or more just as well as or better than a team of professionals who do this every day and who have helped thousands of people? And the cost of professional advice is not as out of reach as you might think. Personally, I've paid a company $4,000 for a long-term plan to create a multi-million-dollar property portfolio for me. And I paid them about $15,000 each time that they located, negotiated, and bought each of my investment properties, which were in line with that plan and my financial goals. And yes, I totally accept that this isn't a small amount of money, but it's not that much more when you consider you would have already saved up at least $100,000 for a deposit on the property. You just need to save that little bit more to pay your team of professionals. Anyway, it's just been worth it in spades for me because there's no way I could have learned all these things while also working a full-time job. Even if I did learn them, I wouldn't have executed them as well as my team who do this every single day. I would have just got substandard results, and I'm also sure that it helped me avoid mistakes which would have been much more costly than the money I paid for the professional services. So the simple point I'm just trying to make from all of this is to give yourself a break and don't put so much pressure on yourself. You don't need to, and you shouldn't do it all by yourself. There are people who can help you, and you don't need to learn everything about everything because you'll have a team to rely on. And I truly believe that this can really catapult your wealth to new levels that you probably couldn't even imagine. So there you go, guys. That's 6 money habits that are keeping you poor. If you found this video useful and you're interested in building a system that will supercharge your savings, you'll love this video that's going to pop up on your screen right about now. Please also remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really does make a difference. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and bye bye.